Good morning and welcome to episode 48 of the Jaguar Report podcast. My name's Gus Logue. I'm co-hosting with John Shipley. How we doing, John?
Doing good, man. It's a great day to host you. It's always a good day to host you. No, man, I'm doing good. It's nice to have a little break with the Jags, in Detroit for a few days, and then we won't be back at it until next week on site. But I mean, I'm doing good. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, that break's been nice. Like we were talking before, the break from between practices is almost better than that 3 week stretch between mini camp and training camp.
It's nice. It feels nice.
So we only had 2 practices to go to this week and last week. Next week is 4 again, but then the regular season starts. But football's back because the Jaguars just played the Cowboys.
Oh yeah,
They won 28-3. So
Jerry Jones can't figure out Doug Peterson.
certainly not McCarthy.
Doug Peterson owns Mike McCarthy.
I was gonna say something about the Calvin Ridley era, but yeah, let's just get into some takeaways, John. Do you have a biggest takeaway that's not stands out as a clear number one?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that we can, you and I talked about it some already before, but I mean, just the usage of 13 personnel, and 12 personnel that we really saw. I mean, I think it was the second drive, not the first drive, because the first drive was a screen that saw Calvin Ridley be so excited to block that he ended up being rebounded off a defender. And then obviously the interception that, I've never seen a preseason interception be dissected this much but except for a debate, I personally I buy Doug Peterson saying it slipped off his hands. I mean, when you watch the end zone angle, the ball is really wobbling and stuff, and you're like, when you see him out, you're like, okay, if that was a deeper throw, he would have been open, But I refuse to talk about that play any further. I told myself
I
I
don't
would
know.
put
It sounds like you did all the detective work and got it off your.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't
But
know. Sure, the ball slipped out of his hands, but there was that one slip up, and then he was 5 for 5 the rest of the game, and the offense was looking pretty good.
yeah, I mean that. Obviously, the touchdown was a nice play. It was good protection by the offensive line. That 2-point conversion, I thought, watching the broadcast, that he overshot Calvin Ridley at first. I didn't think at all that pass was going to Zay Jones in the back of the end zone. And that seems like a pass that they've been working on a lot, especially in training camp, that back of the end zone, smallest window possible.
Yeah, Lawrence always does a floater too.
Exactly. But I mean, I thought that we saw the offense, kind of show some of its identity. I mean, the 13 personnel, for those wondering, 13 personnel, it's one running back, 3 tight ends. Now that they have a room with guys like, Evan Ingram, obviously leading the charge, but then Brendan Strange and Luke Farrell, it seems like they're more comfortable with having, those heavy tight end formations on the field. Last year, I know they ran 12 personnel at, top 15 rate in the league, but I know they weren't a 13 personnel heavy team. That's because, they had 2 limited guys, and Dan Arnold, who could only run routes and couldn't block, and Chris Manhertz, who could only block and couldn't run routes. Whereas Luke Farrell and Brendan Strange, they think can do both. And I mean, Brendan Strange blocked his ass off, against Dallas. It was a game that, probably summed up what his rookie year is going to look like. He saw 3 targets. Like, him and Kevin Austin were the only ones who saw 3 targets, and they combined for it was 2 catches for 8 yards and 6 targets. It was something like that. Yeah. It's about a yard a target. So, but as a blocker, other than the one hold he got, I thought he was fantastic. I thought Luke Farrell, other than one missed block on the Tank Bigsby short yardage run, was fantastic. And Evan Ingram kind of showed why he's a difference maker, because he showed that, he can block from several alignments. He can flex out to the slot. He can work out of the backfield kind of as an H-back. I mean, they look to me like an offense that is going to be much more diverse, much more, flexible, and a lot more like an Andy Reid, offense. Obviously Doug's an Andy disciple. we saw a ton of 11 personnel from the Jaguars last year, and that didn't really feel like, obviously a lot of Doug's concepts, but it didn't really feel like his identity that we saw the Eagles. Whereas what I think you saw against Dallas is a lot closer.
Totally. I think Ingram is like obviously not Kelsey, but he can be asked to do like a lot of the same things from a route running perspective and just from like a drawing up a play perspective. And so like I feel like the Jaguars were then when they drafted Strange, like Peterson was probably looking for his version of like Noah Gray more than he was like a Dallas Goddard honestly, because like as we've discussed, like we're not going to see a big impact from Brenton Strange in his rookie year or maybe even his first few years, but he will have like a not small impact in terms of being like a minor chess piece for the Jaguars offense, like a Christian Kirk light almost. And like Kirk is much more in terms of like matchups, like who he's facing up against, like literally across from him. But then Strange is kind of more so like when him and Farrell come onto the field in 13 personnel, forcing the defense to choose between, oh, we're going to be heavy on defense and like have a bunch of linebackers and linemen and possibly be susceptible to the pass, or we're going to have lighter bodies out there with defensive backs and be more susceptible to the run. So I think with Brenton Strange and with Tank Bigsby and all like the short yardage stuff there, like you're seeing the Jaguars try to lean into that a little bit as like just a schematic twist basically to use in games.
And like you can't like be that kind of offense like with just any tight ends. You need guys who can live in line and guys who can really, who can block defensive ends and inside linebackers. And, to both their credits, it looked like they block well. And I mean, I'd even say Evan Ingram is, it feels like he doesn't get any credit for his blocking. But I mean, I thought last year, for the most part, then against Dallas, he can hold his own in that regard.
I agree. Like, I think among all tight ends, he's like average, but holds his own. But then against like the receiver type slot ends that he's often billed as, he's probably above average compared to like the Mike Gesicki's and everyone else of the world. He can definitely get in there like in the line when he's asked to.
Mike Gesicki's not a football player.
That's also true.
That's my
The Dolphins tagged him last year, and then we were like, "What are we supposed to do with him now?" Just didn't do anything for him.
Yeah. So and then outside of like the usage of the tight ends and like that, I thought a few other things were interesting. I thought Christian Kirk's utilization was interesting. He didn't play any 12 or 13 personnel snaps against Dallas. Like he only played 11 personnel. So he was basically only, a slot receiver. You didn't see that at all really the year before. Like he played a ton of snaps last year because it was like, okay, you're going to have him or Marvin Jones, on the field with Zay Jones. And obviously Kirk would offer you some things that Marvin Jones didn't. But now that you have Calvin Ridley, you do have like two outside guys to where Kirk can kind of be a slot only type guy that maybe he wasn't able to be last year. And I'd imagine that means like maybe fewer routes for him, but I'd say it's mostly less run blocking snaps, and I'm not sure how much that actually changes how often he sees the ball.
Yeah, I think he'll be more efficient just based on like the offense in general probably being pretty good in 2023 with like improvements from Ridley and everyone or Lawrence and everyone plus Ridley. But like he's just gets so many like high leverage opportunities that his efficiency is going to be good in that regard in terms of like down the field vertical targets from the slot, but also like on third and fourth downs and near the red zone. So like, yeah, as you're saying, I agree. His snaps are going to decline a little bit because of Ridley, but like his route running snaps probably won't really change too much.
Yeah, no, I think that ultimately, you probably see him get like the same volume of probably targets, but like he will honestly probably be better late in games because he won't, be running nearly as many routes and as many snaps. And then outside of that, how to use like the running back room was very like it was very obvious, how they were kind of seeing the running backs. Like Travis Etienne got what, like 5 of the first 6 carries.
Yeah, and then it was their first 3rd and 1. They were like, "Tank, get on up there with 13 personnel.
Here comes the
tight ends with you."
Then gets tackled for no gain. When we watched the play, like I said, it was a missed block by Farrell. It wasn't Tank actually like had leverage on the other like defender, it would have been like probably at least a 10-yard gain if Farrell had like half of a block on the linebacker, but it was still so funny that they were like, all right, first short yardage, here comes Tank to get it. Just stuffed immediately. I was like, that's the most Jaguars thing
That was
ever.
really good. The hit came out of like nowhere too. It looks like he was gonna have a wide open path and was like full steam ahead.
He should have.
He like had the same kind of tackle as like Ridley on that screen block on the first play. He just got rebounded backward.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I thought Tank ran well overall, but it was, Travis is going to be the lead back, between the 20s. I think it's obvious. And, I'd imagine the split's like if you want like the finance a split, it's like 70-30, maybe 75-25. Tank will obviously play more than just short yardage roles, but his like when it's like, oh, this guy's definitely going to be on the field, I think it's going to be those short yardage situations. And then Jermichael Hasty, when you saw them get in the red zone and going to empty, he's the guy you saw go on the field. I think he's going to play most of the, like the obvious passing downs. And I mean, I think those are three pretty easily, defined roles.
Totally. I feel like Hasty is like the guy in the backfield that not enough people are talking about. It was like the same way last year where people kind of didn't realize how many snaps he was really getting and how many routes he was running. And I feel like it's kind of going to be the same thing. And then to go back to the receivers real quick, like I feel like Zay is pretty underrated in the fact that like he's going to be playing almost every single snap as like one of their two outside guys and will only really ever come off the field in like those 13 personnel situations. And then like because opposing defenses have to worry about Ridley and Kirk and Engram and ETN, like he should be able to take advantage of pretty much any matchup that he gets, which is almost always going to be like the worst that the defense has to offer. So I think like they're gonna kind of like Brenton Strange almost gonna play like significant small roles.
No, that's a good point. He probably will see like the worst like cornerback, on the field most snaps. That's
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that. That's a good point. I think, obviously they weren't going against Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. It wasn't the Cowboys starting defense, but I thought the offensive line did what they were supposed to. I thought Anton Harrison played a lot better than I anticipated. I did not think – I thought he would have some, like, welcome to the NFL moments.
Right. Again.
He had what? Like 12 pass blocking snaps and, like, 0 pressures allowed?
Yeah.
Like, I know it's Dante Fowler who, by the way, Dante Fowler's still in the NFL, which is credit to him. I didn't see that one
He's
coming.
like low-key been like not producing big time, but like producing okay the past few years.
Yeah. And, like, again, I know he's not Micah Parsons. He's a backup pass rusher. He's still like the best pass rusher Anton Harrison's ever played like in a game in his life. And Anton handled him. He was aggressive and physical in the running game. He was smooth, quick feet in the pass blocking game. He has a solid anchor. Reports from people who are there in Detroit today said he did, he had a solid day against Aiden Hutchinson. It seems like, obviously there'll be some growing pains somewhere, but it seems like he might be more ready to play than maybe, anybody. And obviously he's going to play even if he's not ready to play. But the fact that he might offer a little more as a rookie than you would expect could be a pretty big plus.
Yeah, especially if he starts out fast and like Calvin Ridley like doesn't necessarily start out like on fire, then it'll be big to get like quick production from at least one of those two like new starters. But yeah, I definitely thought like it wasn't going to be a perfectly seamless transition from Jawan Taylor at right tackle over to Harrison, mostly just because like Taylor was a near All-Pro or maybe just Pro Bowler last year. And Harrison's like, even though he has a good profile, a rookie's a rookie. But like all that said, Saturday was definitely impressive in terms of just like how smooth everything looked. He looked like comfortable over on the right side. And I feel like offensive tackle is kind of like cornerback because they get compared a lot because like they are such a reactionary position and they always have people like running at them, but also like they have a good game if like there's not really a lot of chatter about them. So like until I see a headline that's like Anton Harrison blows 3 plays or whatever, like it's a good sign to like not see it.
Let's play some bulky ball. Okay. Would you rather have Jawan Taylor or Anton Harrison a 3rd-round pick, and $70 million in cap space?
I would rather have Juwan Taylor and Walker Little, as we both said.
No, answer the question. Answer the question. Answer the question. You just got
I
massive.
think I'd rather have Juwan.
Really?
Like, I kind of think that they like went with the other option because like they have a quarterback that they have to pay pretty soon. But like if it wasn't for that, then like I don't think Juwan's price tag was like so out of reach that they couldn't have like kept a homegrown guy.
It's a lot of money you can do with other things.
That's true. I don't think there's like a right or wrong option, honestly.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
just Juwan was like a good, cool player, so I would have been good to keep him.
You just got masterclass, nonetheless. Nonetheless.
New segment. It's just called Bonky Ball, and you tell me that I've been masterclass at the end of every segment.
You're darn right. You're darn right. You're darn right. I mean, otherwise on offense, I thought like just some of the other things like I observed, like Dearness Johnson's obviously the 4th back. Like he got in the game before Snoop Connor. Snoop Connor, I think, averaged like barely 2 yards a carry. Like last preseason, it was the same thing. So like, even in the preseason, he just that pick just kind of looks, DOA at this point. It kind of looks like it's already written on the wall. I thought Seth Williams made a couple of nice grabs. Jacob Harris obviously had the really nice catch. Elijah Cooks, had the impressive grab. Blake Cants played better than I thought he would, because, I mean, Mozzie Smith was still playing. Cooper Hodges, I thought had an impressive outing. Like, I almost think you have to have him on the 53-man roster at this point. And then I thought Kevin Austin did himself, like a decent amount of harm. Like, several other receivers stood out. And I don't know, like that one target that it was like maybe a drop, maybe it wasn't. It could go either way, but still, it felt like, a night where so many other guys took advantage of opportunities. He didn't.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, like, what do you think if you had to predict the depth chart right now, what would it be after Agnew in Washington? Like, do you think anyone overtook Tim Jones in the past week?
I think Jacob Harris is close, man.
I think so too. I did not think I was going to be saying that a month ago.
Jacob Harris.
Yeah.
I think Jacob Harris is close.
I think I noticed like either yesterday or the day before, like he got like bumped up a little bit in terms of like when he was running his routes.
He did.
Yeah.
He was like went in with like that first group of like the second teamers and stuff, whereas he had been like most like with the last team and most of training camp. So I think Jacob Harris is close.
Yeah, I think it's between him and Jones and then Cooks.
Tim Jones would have had like a 40-yard catch too. Like he had like a really nice 9 route, and the ball was just you could see it on his face, bro. Like the paint on his face.
The Beathard to Jones hookup has not been working this preseason or just this summer.
No, it has not.
Yeah, I almost felt bad for Jacob Harris because I felt like his like spotlight was taken away because he had like the play of the game up until Nate Rourke went in and just pulled some Minshew magic out of his butt.
I mean, that's like their offensive depth. It seemed like for the first time, like so in past years, their first string offense was like a second team offense, like to begin with. So once their backup offense went in, it was like pure like slop ball, like it wasn't anything. They actually felt like a preseason game that could keep people engaged this year, which I felt, says a lot about, their depth and where it's came in the last couple of years.
Hey, they did their part on defense too. When Deuce Vaughn was going off, they made it entertaining on that side of the ball.
Dude, that's it. The Cowboys, we'll talk about the defense here in a second, but they did like Cooper Rush such a disservice.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was brutal. The Jags are going after him.
It was hilarious that Zach Martin got paid like a day or two later after like that left guard just being like sent to the moon over and over again. But we'll get to the defense here in 1 minute. First, going to hear from our sponsors. Gus, obviously, like we said, backup offense. Yeah, I had several people at me and be like, "You concerned about the pass rush? Look at what they just did." And I welcome anybody to go look at what the Cowboys' offensive line was. I can't tell you the names off the top of my head because, again, none of them were names I had ever heard. up until that point in my life, and
You
names
can't say them because they just simply weren't real.
we're never going to hear again. Like they were going against plumbers and electricians,
Yeah,
offensive line, but they did what they were supposed to. Like Devon Hamilton absolutely took a guy's soul a few times.
yeah, he had a
Robson
great game.
Harris, Trayvon Walker got home on a stunt. Man, if you watch the game and you're like, I just want to watch Trayvon Walker's reps, it really makes you like. I guess we'll start off with this. It made me uneasy about the season he's going to have, not because of anything he did at all, but because he's playing the most useless position in the defense, I think.
Okay,
Strong side outside linebacker. He is either he's getting chipped by tight ends on most plays, or he's dropping off into coverage. And when he was rushing the passer, obviously it was just a preseason game, but it was pretty much all quick throws and stuff. And I'm like, unless that guy's just sitting in the pocket, there is nothing that this position can do to make any kind of impact in this game whatsoever.
in the passing game, yeah. But I feel like
Yeah.
that's like part of it is that like they're using him for the run game more first, just because like the difference between him and Chason, if you trot out Chason or Abdullah as a run defender on the edge, like Chason has improved since he was drafted, but like I think like the reason that the Jags defense had a pretty big improvement in the run department last year, and that they'll probably continue to improve, is that like they don't really let up like anything on the outside. They just like funnel everything in and let like Foye and hopefully this next year Devin Lloyd just kind of play cleanup. So like I don't disagree with you, but I was just trying to play like devil's advocate.
No, and you're right. Like against the run, definitely is able to be more impactful. But I don't know. Like I was just watching through the lens of okay, let's see, how Trayvon looks, and I'm like, wow, almost every one of these snaps is completely useless. Like there's nothing going on. Like
Yeah.
like you say, it's not a him thing. It's just I'm like, dang man, I don't know like. If he was ever able to be unlocked and just be able like to actually move up and down the defensive line, I feel like the perception of him would be so much different than it probably will be.
The perception could at least be like, oh, there's still hope for him out for him yet, like across the country. But like I feel like it's just like, oh, I'm never gonna hear about this guy again because he plays on the Dallas defensive line, third string.
Yeah. So I mean, defensively, again, it was first string against second team, so some context is needed. I thought Devin Lloyd looked like much more instinctive. Obviously maybe the neck pad helped.
I was gonna say the neck roll definitely helped.
I mean, he took on like a fullback, in the hole and, made the tackle. And it was, an impressive rep from him, regardless of which offense you're facing. So I thought he had an impressive outing. And I thought, guys who really stood out, overall, Greg Jr., we've talked about, he's got to be locked into the 53.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got to be in the fourth corner at the very least, right?
I was already like, my eyebrows were raised when the unofficial depth chart came out, and he was like the backup nickel behind Trey Herndon. But like the coaches have talked him up for 6 months now, and he's like clearly playing in like the second string spots. So like he just feels like a lock, and he's going inside and out, which like I feel like they love their versatility. So the fact that they seem actually comfortable with him in both spots.
Yeah.
So it goes Campbell, Williams, Herndon, and him would be like locks.
100%. Then you're talking about guys like Devon Campbell, Vontarie Brown, Chris Claybrooks, Eric Hallett, Christian Braswell for those other spots. I wouldn't count out Christian Braswell. They are really like I know he's had a hamstring injury. They're super high on him. Extremely. And he had a good game against Dallas. He recorded an interception. Like he has really good movement skills. He can play outside. He can play inside. Hallett, somebody who he can play. Like it seems like they're going to have some tough decisions to make.
I was going to say Devon Campbell had a really good play yesterday after the Jags moved inside at camp.
Yeah,
I think it was another Beathard to Jones attempt, but it was like a really good play. He's got like a good frame and long arms. I feel like he's definitely in the mix.
Better than Jones. God, better than Jones, man. And I mean, I think probably the biggest guy who stood out in terms of what the sheer impact they were made. Would you say it'd be like Yasir Abdullah?
I would say that was at least like the most surprising
Yeah,
that I saw, like above expectations or whatever.
same, same. He looked better in the game setting than he's looked like in camp and stuff. But that sack he made a nice like little dip move around the corner.
Hmm.
He's obviously a high effort rusher, and yeah, Caleb on Chason, kind of plays the same role Trayvon Walker does, but with the backup defense. So you see Abdullah is the one seeing a lot of those one-on-one blocks on the edge and stuff, and it really set him up well. And I think if they can get anything out of Yasir, that'd be a positive. Like anything out of him as a rookie, because you'll probably get Smoot back the second month of the season. Maybe something happens at the Jadeveon Clowney visit. Maybe something doesn't. It seems like at this point, that's a lot more just checking to see where he's at and doing the due
Yeah,
diligence than anything. But if Yasir can give you something, I think that can help at least, offset not the loss of Arden Key, but just the loss of like pass rush depth in general, make you feel better about what happens if Trayvon or if Josh Allen, miss any time at all. And then Caleb on, like again, I watched him the same way I watched Trayvon. And there's a lot of the same stuff, like a lot of dropping in the coverage, a lot of taking on chips and running back blocks. But like the times he was like getting one-on-ones, it's just like there's nothing nothing really happening.
yeah. I'm excited to see like what kind of magic Mike Caldwell can cook up and like how he can scheme these guys up between Walker and Chason and Abdullah and like these guys because like Smoot and Allen are like the only guys that can like win consistently one on one. I feel like Smoot's pretty underrated in that regard in terms of just like he's actually got like a pretty good bevy of pass rush moves. But like when Caldwell was asked a couple weeks ago about like the transition in practice from going to pads, he was like brought up stunts on his own and was like, yeah, we'll be able to actually like see what some of this stuff is going to look like. So we saw like one instance of it on like 2nd and 10 on the Cowboys' first drive on that big sack because like Josh Allen just completely plowed someone and then Devon Hamilton like wrapped around and seeing Ham like do the wrap around was pretty hilarious because it was going in slow motion.
He's
But
so explosive, dude.
yeah, it was a great like play design though, and then obviously a great execution to get the sack. Or I think that stunt that I'm describing actually is on like the 3rd down after the sack.
Yeah.
But there was still like a cool blitz from Cisco to like get them into that like 3rd and long before the play that I just described. So like I think Caldwell is going to kind of have to have some stuff up his sleeve, and I'm excited to see what it is.
It definitely feels like he's going to throw a lot of different packages out there to kind of offset for the lack of like true alphas or anything like that, which, and like it feels like this age, this day in the NFL kind of feels like more the norm than anything else. Like it feels like, yeah, it feels like those multiple defenses, like it's the new like thing. And those like defense like the Jets who are just getting home with 4 guys is kind of like the new rarity.
Yeah, you definitely because like the thing is like once you get to the playoffs, like sure if your like front four is really elite, then maybe you can get home. But
Yeah.
you gotta like mix up pressures and coverages and just try to do your best to confuse like these elite quarterbacks and just try to get like one good break and one takeaway. So like that like sim pressures and like all that stuff is definitely like the world we're going towards.
What's your stance on the Clowney visit?
I mean, he's like the best guy left on the market because he's like the only guy that's like actually interesting, but also not 33 or 34 years old. So,
His knees are though.
like, if he's obviously like there would be interest and he would take a visit because he's open to taking like a non-starter role. So, like, with that assumption, I think it would be a cool signing mostly because of the run defense because like the focus should be on the pass rush, but like he would like be pretty sweet in the run game and like potentially be like a huge factor on. I feel like.
I'm surprised that they had him in for a visit, honestly. Like not because it's surprising that they were like doing that homework on pass rushers, but between like his exit in Cleveland, where he was outright like, no, they're letting Myles Garrett get too many easy matchups so he can get sacks.
Yeah.
And like that literally getting him cut from the team. And then like him going on record saying he hates playing in 3-4 defenses in the past. I didn't think he seemed like a fit, but I mean,
But then he interviewed or visited with 2-3-4 defenses in Jacksonville and Baltimore.
it's August 16th, man.
I was about to say it's about that time of the
rinse due. Yeah, rinse due. Yeah. it beggars can't be choosers, and that probably goes for both parties at this point.
I honestly feel like if they were gonna sign Clowney, like why Clowney? Like you could have gotten probably like someone else a little better earlier, like a Justin Houston or a Yannick. Like if you really wanted like that type of guy.
I think he'd be cheaper.
Yeah. I just like don't understand like what saving a couple million really does.
Well, you're a kid.
I guess I was like a little surprised by it too, and didn't really like I wasn't surprised when he walked out of the building like without a contract, even though some people are like, "Oh, what are they doing?" Because I feel like at this point,
not tying him to a chair.
What were you thinking?
It kills me if you let him leave.
Don't let him leave the building. I feel like they're gonna wait either for like a potential trade candidate, which like that could take a while, or like cut day. And like maybe theoretically some team has like a deep edge room. Like the Niners would be the only one I could think of. But like if there's an interesting guy, then they can just like try to scoop someone up. That's like what they did with Hasty last year.
Do the Jaguars have any players who you could see them getting draft picks for around cut day?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah. I feel like maybe probably not the receivers.
What would the draft compensation even be? Like a 7th rounder for Elijah Cooks?
Yeah.
Maybe a 7th rounder for Elijah Cooks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he's new this year, right?
Yeah, he's on draft free agent. Yeah.
Right. So like I feel like he would be way more interesting than Kevin Austin, even if they've like played around the same level and Kevin Austin has improved. Like the fact that it's Cooks is like a guy that scouts were kind of just looking at and have fresher eyes on might make him a little bit more appealing.
I mean, we expect them to have a lot of guys claimed, right?
Yeah. Trying to think of like what other positions, like offensive line, like Cooper Hodges.
Like they traded for Cole Van Lannon last year.
Right.
Like, could there be a deal like that? Yeah, could somebody trade for Blake Hance? Don't laugh at that.
No, I was about to agree with you, but
the Hansonator.
Laughing.
Yeah.
I'm thinking too hard.
You just
move on.
You just got enhanced.
Yeah. Just different segment bits for roasting me. It's the whole show.
Hanging with Mr.
Whatever.
Hanging with Mr. Cooper Hodges. No. All right. Go ahead.
You want to talk Lions?
I do. I do want to talk Lions.
All right, let's talk Lions. Where are you looking out for on Saturday's game?
I mean, it feels like the starters aren't going to play much, right?
No, I feel like one full drive is like the max, or like I don't even know. I feel like it's probably going to be a pretty big inactive list, though.
Yeah, because it seems like they're basically playing games like this week in practice.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, like they're getting a ton of reps against the Lions starting offense and defense. So, I mean, obviously, we'll be on the lookout, for reports of, it seemed like from people that were there, on the ground that the offense had a particularly strong day against, Detroit's defense, and that Detroit's offense also, struggled. I think it was either Brent Martineau or Stuart Weber said Devin Lloyd had a one-handed interception of Jared Goff. I know they said Calvin Ridley scored a couple times. Trevor Lawrence was mostly, on fire. It seemed like the Jaguars had the better day of the two teams, which, I mean, considering the Lions like mopped the floor with them like less than a year ago, I mean that's a pretty good sign, right?
Definitely. I think especially too because like the Lions are a huge like trench warfare team and like definitely built through their offensive. Well, I guess I don't know how many people I can name on their defensive line, but definitely for the offensive line, like their O line is easily top 5 in the league and pretty physical. So, like I think that'll be like something that to watch for on Saturday is like the physicality up front and then like the diverseness of the run game. Not that we're really going to get too many like scheme stuff out of week 2 of the preseason, but Detroit just has a really good run game and really diverse run game. So, seeing like whether or not the Jaguars can come up with different answers will be something to see.
Yeah, no, it definitely feels like when you go back to that game against the Lions, like the Jaguars just got out physical on like both lines of scrimmage,
Yeah.
and it seems like from at least reports what we saw today in today's practice, they stepped up in that regard, And I thought against Dallas, they looked like a more physical team. Just some of the pieces they've added. It seems like they have a little bit. It just seems like they have a little bit more of an edge to them than they did last year. At least offensively, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think joint practice is kind of a good thing. You can kind of see where you are just in terms of that intensity and that physicality. And like I said, the Lions like smacked them around, in the trenches last year. Like they like especially the Lions offensive line versus the Jaguars defense. Like it was bad. And if they're gonna get better and be able to beat all kinds of different teams, that's where they need to improve.
That was the only note that I had on it was just the physicality up front.
Yeah.
He's like, I
I
was going
mean,
to say St. Brown, but like he got injured today, so like there's no way he's playing on Saturday.
are
So
you in, are you interested at all in the Aiden Hutchinson, Trayvon Walker narratives?
there's narratives.
Yeah, number 1 pick, number 2 pick.
Hmm. I thought you were like saying like you were like comparing them.
Yeah,
Well,
they're always
obviously people are
compared.
comparing them, but just like saying like unnecessary things that are too soon. I don't know. So no, it doesn't really interest me. Like they're on like opposite sides of the ball, and
Yeah.
they don't touch the ball. So unless one of them actually like touches the ball on Saturday and gets like an interception or fumble or sack, then like I am interested in seeing how like both of their careers play out. But like especially with Hutchinson, like because he was kind of tied with the Jaguars and a potential Jaguars pick. But in terms of like the Trayvon versus Aiden matchup, like this week specifically, then it's preseason.
Would
There's
you have taken Would you have taken Hutchinson?
like, I don't know, man. I would have
I'll
taken
give you
Sauce Gardner.
no, yeah, okay. I was gonna say if I give you a time machine and you can go back then, you're playing bulky ball. Who are you taking? You taking Sauce Gardner?
I liked Thibodeau, honestly.
Yeah.
I I feel like I didn't really like do enough film grinding to actually have a strong take, but if like you made me pick one, then I probably would have picked Tibbs.
I like Tibbs too. I mean, it's like impossible to compare like how they would look. You'll never hear the Jaguars like give any actual like public statement like on how they feel, about making that decision between the two.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I do think they're going to be compared for the rest of their careers. I don't think there's ever going to be a year that goes by where Walker and Hutchinson aren't compared, at least in some, aspect in retrospect.
Yeah, because I expect both of them to be like Pro Bowl level players.
All right, here's my question: if Nathan Work has a great game against Detroit and CJ Beathard struggles, competition heating up?
I would say like there would be like talk about a competition heating up, but like if I'm the Jaguars, there's no competition at all. Like if anything, Work would probably be like a good like candidate for that like trade for a 7th rounder list. So because like I don't know if the Jags are going to carry 3 quarterbacks into the 53-man roster. But
I love how much Canada loves Nathan Rourke.
all these people are just popping up. They're like,
Dude,
I'm an NFL fan, and I'm from Canada, and I love Nathan Rourke.
he is a rock star, bro. They're showing his games at Canadian football games, bro. He's a rock star.
Yeah, he reminds me so much of Minshew, though. Like, not just of like that one pass. I was like, had some Minshew magic, but he's just like so skittery around the pocket after like one full second. So like, I feel like in the preseason, like that's pretty fun. But when it comes to the regular season, like if Lawrence went down, I'd rather have like the stable veteran presence or whatever of Beathard.
This third string quarterback from Canada reminds me so much of the guy who started 20 games for the Jaguars. And the sad thing is, it's true.
Yeah, they've got like actually similar playing styles, but like now, like it's actually like fitting for like where they are on the depth chart.
Yeah. God. Right place, right time.
I mean, I guess Minshew was a 6th-round pick rookie, so.
No, yeah. I mean,
expected.
Man, I mean, in terms of like position battles, I mean, I feel like we hit it all. I don't expect Ben Barch to play. You know, he's off the PUP list. He wasn't practicing, this week. So I think as you get closer to the end of training camp, you probably see him like ramp up more and more. I would assume if you're going to see anybody play maybe a little longer, maybe it's Walker Little and Anton Harrison on Saturday, just because both of them need game reps. Anton being a rookie and Walker playing like 9 full football games in the last 4 years or whatever.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy how like little actual action he's gotten for how long he's been in the league now.
I mean, I got a story on like that on JaguarReport today, and Phil Rauscher was like, "Yeah, last year was basically his rookie year to me, and now in his 30th season is when he can kind of start coming into his own."
Yeah, we talked about it last week. The ceiling is the roof for him.
Oh yeah, runner big. Well, Gus, is there anything else from this riveting preseason that you want to get off your chest? Any hot takes you got?
My hot take is that Calvin Ridley scores a touchdown in the first half of the Colts game. Just because, like, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets off to a what? Just tell me what.
Go ahead.
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets off to like not even slow start, but not a blazing fast start in the regular season. But I do think like he's just like so like antsy to get the ball that like I feel like he's just like destined to get like an early touchdown, and so that it's almost like a wave of relief, and it's like, okay, now we can just like I got my one, now we can just like go out and play. But he's just the kind of guy that's like always open even when he's not. So like it's funny to see him after plays. Like he's not like complaining when he doesn't get the ball, but he's like, yo, I was open every time.
It's a bold stance to say the Jags' best player might score a touchdown in the first game.
All right, first quarter then. I was gonna ask if it was if it was not hot enough.
No, it's cold.
Okay,
it's cold, Gus. I need to stick it in the microwave.
I'll change it to first quarter on like one of their first 2 drives.
Hey, all right. I'm not burning the roof of my mouth on it, but it's I can
just
stomach
thought
it.
about it like 30 seconds ago because I didn't have a hot take. So that's what's gonna get written down.
Okay,
I'm gonna say Ridley first quarter touchdown.
All right, hot take. You writing this one down?
Yep.
Aiden Hutchinson 6 sacks in 2023.
Why are you so obsessed with him?
Put it down.
6 sacks.
Yeah, 2023. Because you're making me do this. One of us has to play the game, right?
So how is 6 sacks a hot take? Is that like lower than expected?
I'd say so.
What do you think is expected from him? Like 9?
10?
10?
Yeah.
All right, I like that take.
Why
I don't think that's not hot either because like half his sacks.
God,
like 3 sacks in one game last year that we both agreed were like not real. But
there were daggers in your voice. This is what the preseason has brought us to.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, Gus, you got anything else for us before we head out until we come back next week to review the Jaguars trouncing of the Lions?
Oh, is
Yeah.
that another hot take?
Oh no, it's not even a hot take.
It's just gonna happen.
Watch out. God, who's their backup? Nate Sudfeld.
Mm.
Watch out, Billy.
Watch out, Nate. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got nothing else. Till next week.
All right. Till next week.